Hello, everyone. Welcome to Raíces y Alas, which translates to roots and wings. I am your host, Adriana Solórzano, and this is my very first episode, and I'm so honored to be here. Also, a little bit nervous because I've never done this before. And today, I want to begin the best way that I know how to begin this, which is by sharing my story. So you get to know the woman behind the mic, the truth behind this vision, and you know what broke, what has healed, what began to heal, what's healing. So I was born in Venezuela and currently I'm living in Canada in British Columbia. I'm a mother, I'm a financial advisor, and an intuitive healer. But before I wore all those titles and hats, I am a woman. And I've been learning for quite a while how to take my space in this world, learning how to belong, learning how to remember my power. And the big part of remembering, it's been connected with money, and just not money in the bank, not just the numbers, but the emotions, the silence, the stories, the sacrifice wrapped around it, the way that shaped my marriage, the way that dictated my freedom, and the way that lived in my body as well. Like that weight that I couldn't like name for years. And there was a moment in my marriage where I think I started to remember way deeper because I was feeling that I had to ask for permission to buy myself anything. You can tell I was dependent of my husband. And, at times I had to just like every little thing, just share with him of what I was doing. He wasn't asking about this, he wasn't asking details. I felt I had to do it. So, and it maybe sounds small, but for me, it symbolized something deeper. Something was going on, had to reflect on where, when I lost agency, when I had lost my voice, and not because I was lazy and unworthy, but because I was dependent in that moment, financially and emotionally too. And that's because I was taught to be that way. As a first generation immigrant, I didn't have family nearby or any daycares when I became a mom. Um, so it didn't make sense to me to go to work, send my daughter to a daycare where I was just using all my income to pay for that daycare, leaving her with somebody else to raise her. And I don't know, it didn't make sense to me. And so I decided to stay home. That was the most logical move at the time. You know, I wanted to be close to her. I wanted to be the one who build that foundational of beliefs and emotional stability for my daughter. And, you know, it felt at the moment like so right, so aligned with my true mother instinct and desire. But at some point, after years, I realized that I was functioning as dependent, right? And I had been conditioned and believed that that was the life that I wanted, and that was normal. But something inside me just kept refusing to just be there, be put be quiet, just be that and nothing else. I've been always so curious about psychology, about spirituality, about self-reflection, questioning, and I was just okay. This is a moment where I want to see beyond that. I want to see what's happening before this feeling that I'm becoming so submissive when in reality, even though that's what I'm doing consciously, that's not what I want. So I started to do a little more, work, shadow work, journaling, somatic healing, just like peeling all those layers of inherited stories and narratives. And of course, at that time when I was going through this process, I was also experiencing some grief because then you're kind of like left with nothing. You're peeling these layers. I'm not this, I'm not that, trying to belong, to identify where is that I want to be and who I want to be. And finally, just like let it go, right? I also had a daughter. I'm a mom. I'm giving this example. Like, I asked myself, what story am I handing her about money, about me being independent, about being a woman, about power, right? So that question started changing everything. Um, I started to study. I became a postpartum doula, then an early childhood educator, and later on, it led me also to financial literacy. It led me to, most importantly, it led me to myself. So, Raíces y Alas came to me in that moment where, when you've been like thirsty for quite a while and you have like that first sip of water. I felt that when I received the message of this is what I want to do, I want to start this podcast, was like a spiritual need of sharing stories. And I wish it was something that I had for myself. So I'm leaving this as well as a legacy for my daughter. I've been desiring to create a place to hold space for our ancestral stories around money, right? And not how to create this new paradigm of wealth. Because I come from a family of a lineage of women that have experienced poverty and abuse. My grandmother was very, very poor. She grew up in Venezuela, a family of like seven, five sisters, and they didn't have electricity. I think they didn't even have kitchen. Like, I don't really know exactly those details. I just know that she grew up very, very poor, and in her marriage, then she, you know, she built up, she built a community. She got together with women that were very, very wealthy, and she found her way to have her own house, and she did so good at that. She didn't even finish high school, and she did very good by that time. And then, but she married, she married an alcoholic, an abuser, and my mom experienced that. My mom was raised by someone who had experienced poverty, who had that trauma, and it was around. Even though they were doing better, it was constantly around that lack mentality, that scarcity. Um, so of course that was passed on to me. And my mom not only experienced that, she had an abusive dad that actually years later, after she passed away, and the pain that I was working on, all that work that I was doing, that I was telling you before. Well, I felt that pain. That was an intergenerational pain that came up for me. That was after giving birth. I had vaginal pain. I had my muscles super contracted. I wasn't even able to relax. And then through a lot of physiotherapy, I saw a shaman, I saw, I did that spiritual work. I worked really, really deep to find out what the heck what was happening. My mom had passed away. My grandpa had passed away at that time. But I discovered the darkest, deepest secret in our family, that it was that my mom was sexually abused by her dad. So I grew up with a mother that didn't let herself receive or enjoy pleasure, that kept that secret her whole life, who suffered so much. And when I see that related to abundance, that's like a nut. That's something that, you know, if you don't untangle or heal, you never get to really experience that pleasure of being in abundance, right? So that's why money isn't just numbers. It's your nervous system, legacy, it's emotion, it's to rest, to receive, to heal, the medicine, the joy. And when we heal that relationship with money, we begin to break those cycles. You start to discover a lot about maybe your parents, yourself, those narratives, right? We begin to build like an altar out of what once felt like ruins. From now on, it's going to be different. So, if you're listening to this, maybe part of your story is ready to be heard too. Maybe you're not broken, you're just remembering. And this podcast is an invitation to do it together. Remembering our roots and with our wings. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Raíces y Alas.